Welcome to the Airlines podcast series, brought to you by Fetcherr. In this interview show, we're going to talk about how AI and machine learning is innovating the aviation industry. In today's episode, I've got John Dabkowski on the show. He's an avatar titan. He's been working with some of the biggest companies in this industry. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
For the opportunity to talk with you today.
Awesome. Can you kind of elaborate on your extensive track record and background to our audience?
Sure, absolutely. I've been an IT technology guy for a long time, pretty much always around the airline industry. I've worked on a range of IT solutions that originally started out with solutions that helped airplanes fly, to much more time spent on commercial systems that help airlines sell seats at the right prices for both the airlines and for the passengers. Most of my career has been with the major providers of those IT solutions, including companies like Sabre, Navitaire, and Amadeus.
You know, John, the IT industry, especially in the aviation industry, has been seeing a dramatic change in the last several decades. You know, what are some of the things that you see on your side that have truly impacted how the IT industry is currently working?
Yeah, I mean, lots of change. I think in general, the airline industry has changed dramatically over the years, over my time, and the IT solutions that are offered to those airlines has changed dramatically as the industry has changed. If I think about a couple of big factors, I think one of the biggest changes for the airline and for the industry was the launch and growth of the low-cost carriers. And in my view, the success of the low-cost carriers has driven huge changes in the way that passengers book and generally the IT solutions that they use, and with the result that it's made airfares much more transparent for the passengers, a big positive from the early days. If you think back in time, traditional companies like Sabre and Amadeus were really big in providing solutions to the travel agents through their GDS services. And they developed IT solutions for airlines really only as a latter step, as a second step after their focus. And they really started working on the full service airlines. Then came this revolution with the low-cost carriers, booking mostly directly over the internet and often bypassing the travel agents and the GDSs. The big guys, Sabre and Amadeus, embraced the LCCs, and after a few different attempts and steps and first steps and back steps, Amadeus acquired Navitaire, Sabre acquired Radix, and really the LCCs transformed the airline industry and transformed the technology a lot to be much more like retail solutions. So huge changes across the airlines, demanding new and innovative IT solutions, and particularly after the pandemic. And we can talk much more about the pandemic and how it drove the need for self-service and automation solutions as well.
Mm-hmm. That is super interesting. And, you know, if I look at the magazines and the articles that I've seen a lot and read a lot in the last 6 months, you know, in this industry, a lot of people are talking about dynamic pricing and how that has made it such a huge impact, both of, you know, on kind of both of the spectrums. We're talking about, airlines like Virgin Atlantic, and we're also talking on low-cost carriers. Yep. So what is the traditional revenue management and high-frequency pricing? How has that progressed in recent months?
That's a great question, and actually, it's an area of huge change. A huge change for a couple of reasons. Like you talked about, the LCCs and the full service carriers demanding much more up-to-date revenue management. But actually, I think the pandemic is accelerating the move, accelerating the change that we're seeing in revenue management directly. The pandemic has made a huge change to booking activities, and as we see the growth after the pandemic, it's completely different. let me use a couple of examples. The first one I would use would be business travel. So a lot of airlines relied heavily on business travel and their booking patterns, and traditional revenue management solutions were very much targeted on that sector of the marketplace. But I strongly believe that business travel is never going to return back to what it was before the pandemic. It'll be a quarter less, it'll be 25% less, maybe a third less of what it was before. And actually, if you think about business travel typically has grown in line with the growth of economies, the growth of GDPs. And so if you take that into account and the growth that would have happened in business travel through the pandemic time that did not happen, I mean, I think business travel is never going to recover to more than about half of what it should have been, Renown. So what that's done is that's driven extremely different booking patterns. Leisure traffic is very, very strong. Business travel, I think, will remain half of what it should have been if we hadn't had the pandemic. And so those booking patterns are completely different. And really, the poor old pricing analysts have to start again. The traditional revenue management solutions have to learn again. It's a whole new ballgame that's going to take years for them to adapt. And so that drives the need for some new solution that's very dynamic, some new solution that can react to these new times of booking patterns and things. And that's where I think we're going to see dynamic pricing really come into its own now in this new situation after the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So just for some context for our audience, you talked about business travel got hit hard. A lot of people are going to remote work. A lot of companies are making their employees travel less. During the pandemic, we saw that a lot of companies, a lot of B2B companies and large enterprises have been able to reduce travel costs. And this made the airlines, like you said, John, have to rethink and to see how they shift their strategies. And this is where technology comes into this space where you just mentioned. What type of technology solutions specifically do you think are you seeing in this industry, specifically in dynamic pricing?
So the big development here is reacting to existing conditions, becoming much more dynamic. The airlines for a long time have had objectives of being much more e-commerce driven, being much more, if you like, Amazon-like. Mm-hmm. Being real retailers, controlling inventory and pricing, like in the retail industry, very much so. And this has become a massive imperative after the pandemic, because as I said before, I believe the booking patterns have completely changed. The nature of how we hold inventory on the airlines has completely changed. And so the technology now has to be much more dynamic. The situation is much more dynamic. We're seeing very high levels of demand in the marketplace in lots of geographies around the world. That's great for the airlines. It's driving issues around the place that we can also talk about. But what it means is there's demand that's there, but it's different demand. It's factored very differently. It's less business. It's more leisure. Like you said, we can all now work from wherever we are, like this call we're having today. Is a great example. And so I think the combining leisure and business travel is something that we never saw very much of before, but I think it's going to grow dramatically, and that's going to drive very different ways of selling those seats and those tickets, and drive very different dynamic pricing requirements for the airlines.
Some airlines have been really intelligent and really proactive in being, some of the first movers, making really quick decisions, shifting to dynamic pricing models backed by AI and machine learning, while some airlines have been struggling to adopt. I don't know if that's a technology problem. I don't know if that's an engineering problem. Can you kind of elaborate on what do you think are some of the barriers that some of these airlines are currently facing?
Sure. There are technology barriers. I mean, they're like many other industries, airlines have a whole range of cultures. Some are more open to adopting new ideas, new processes, and new technologies. For example, we talked about the low-cost carriers a little bit at the beginning. As they emerged and grew, they are great examples of cultures that were ready to challenge traditional thinking. They adopted new processes and, of course, new and different IT solutions all the time. So they've done a very good job of adapting new solutions and continue to adapt to this new environment. I actually think the LCCs and the technology the LCCs use will probably continue to lead. And as leisure travel particularly grows strongly, the LCCs will benefit, and they'll have fewer barriers to success. The full service carriers, while they traditionally have well-established cultures, sometimes they can be a bit slower to adopt change. Sometimes they really require compelling events to change, and they have the traditional barriers of any IT change, the risk of scalability. So these are very big airlines with very high volumes of transactions, and as you look at optimizing pricing dynamically, as you look at recognizing customer shopping trends dynamically, then that's a big load. So there's some hurdles around scalability for some of the big full service carriers that we need to take care of. There's some traditional functionality that they're always going to want to hold on to, and so we need to either work to supply those in the way that they want to use their current processes, or have some very new innovative ways of supplying that functionality. We need high reliability. Airlines need to be super high reliability. We've seen lots of problems with operational systems, for example, are recently due to the high loads. But reliability, data center reliability, is one of the hurdles that the full service carriers particularly, and the growing low cost carriers, need to overcome in order to adopt new solutions. So the solution providers that can demonstrate scalability, have new functionality like dynamic pricing, combined with being able to operate in the more traditional environment, who also use reliable, these days, the cloud-based data centers that we see from all the major cloud providers. They're the vendors that are going to be successful, I think.
Mm-hmm. John, you've been in this industry not for a day, not for 2 days. It's not to say you're old. Say you're super. It's to say you're super experienced. You've been working with some of the biggest names in this industry in such a variety of roles. There's some new guys, new kids who are coming up this industry and trying to make noise and trying to make a name for themselves. What is the best piece of advice would you give startups or companies that are just starting out in their aviation journey right now?
That's a great question, and it's a great question. It's a little bit hard to answer specifically. I mean, I would say that airlines are typically very sophisticated businesses. I mean, they're 24/7 operations. They need to operate reliability. They have a lot of moving parts, right? Aircraft, crews, passengers. Stuff happens every day at the airport. So they're very sophisticated businesses, and I would remind any startup IT company that a general solution is unlikely to be successful. A one-size-fits-all strategy is probably not going to be successful. You're going to need to be able to offer solutions that airlines can adopt in their world, in their environment, in their very sophisticated businesses. I think airlines will adopt new solutions. Airlines will adopt innovative solutions. They absolutely can, but they will probably mandate some pretty compelling criteria that new companies probably need to pay attention to if they want to be really successful. So airline business models will change and need to change. We're seeing that change in this high demand environment. We've talked a little bit about dynamic pricing as we go. The pandemic has driven a very big focus on self-service. So I think companies that are starting need to offer self-service solutions where passengers can help themselves. And actually, I think the emergence of AI, of artificial intelligence, is really going to help here in really making those self-service solutions much more sophisticated, much more usable, by the passengers themselves, and take and be very attractive to the airlines for that use. I do think the vendors are probably, because these airlines are careful and need to have reliable operations, vendors are probably going to need, or new vendors that are starting out with new solutions, we're probably going to need to prove those solutions. So be ready for some sort of proof of concept phase with these airlines to really show that your new solutions really can deliver the promised results. And most importantly, 24/7 operations. It needs to be reliable, and that probably means it needs to use one of the scalable, cost-effective, reliable, cloud-based data center providers that are out there these days.
Mm-hmm. When you look, 5, 10 years, in the future, obviously AI is doing, incredible things in all verticals. We're seeing, ChatGPT, and we're looking at all the hype around this, around OpenAI and what they've been able to do. Other than dynamic pricing, is there any other vertical that you think AI is gonna eat a big, slice of the pie, so to speak, in this industry?
Yeah, I think. Obviously, I think AI is going to become all pervasive across it. I do think there's lots and lots of uses of AI. We've talked about dynamic pricing and working out the right price to offer for a customer. I think AI will expand much more than that during the booking process. It will be becoming much smarter on customer recognition. Even for those customers that are not identifying themselves by their frequent flyer number or some of those sort of things, the AI algorithms during the booking program will start to get very sophisticated in identifying exactly what this customer would prefer to buy, what the right package of services is to offer. So sure, dynamic pricing on the airfare component, but then what should we be offering in addition to that? For ancillary revenues, very important for all airlines these days, not just the low-cost carriers, bags, cars, hotels, etc. So I think AI will become pervasive during the whole booking process. I then think it will move much more actively into the operations area, particularly the area of disruptions. So as we all know, stuff happens every day. Aircraft go down, crew have delayed, stuff happens, and so AI will get much more intelligent. It will be used much more in reallocating passengers, redistributing passengers, handling disruptions in a much more effective way. And that will be combined with much more intelligent self-service tools so that passengers and crew will have access to lots of options on their phones, suggested in real time by AI engines that give them options to handle all these issues that come up. I think AI will also be used by the aircraft and the engine manufacturers to improve efficiencies and in general continue to reduce the carbon footprint of the industry, and I think that's important and will play a very big role in this. So I do think AI will become much more pervasive. I think it will be through the whole travel cycle, from booking to handling disruptions during travel and all those sorts of things, and then some of the follow-up activities after travel.
Mm-hmm. I've been super passionate about reading and researching about how algo trading has been able to penetrate, into industries like the financial markets, into e-commerce. How is the algo trading technology being adopted currently in the aviation industry?
I would say the aviation industry is way behind. And for a long time, the airlines have wanted to be much more sophisticated in this area. They've wanted to be much more sophisticated in how they handle the customers through the whole travel cycle. They have done for a long time. Airlines found it difficult to be close to the customers to understand the booking process. I mean, a lot of the bookings came through intermediaries, right? It came through the GDSs that we talked about at the beginning. So as the relationship between passengers and airlines becomes closer and closer and more direct, and I think the percentage of direct interactions between passengers and the airlines will continue to grow aggressively. The LCCs prove this. The full service carriers are catching up fast. The number of bookings coming via intermediaries will continue to drop. And with this direct relationship between the booking passengers and the traveling passengers and the airline, it opens up all these opportunities for the airlines to use that sort of technology much, much more than they do. Airlines are very much at the infancy and have a long way to go to improve that. And I think it will certainly support the airlines, but it will also make the journey for the passengers, the booking process for the passengers, much improved too, and generally increase their choice, their ability to make those choices using the sophisticated tools that will become available.
John, you've been super generous with your time. I have a final question for you. What made you join Fetcherr as a board member?
So, yeah, I mean, what's always excited me has been new and innovative ideas. When I was at Navitaire, the team did a fantastic job of identifying and then capturing this wave of new innovative solutions for the new innovative low-cost carriers. And that was an exciting journey to be part of. Now I see the next generation, the technology, the AI, the dynamic change in the booking process. And what attracts me to Fetcherr is the fact that it's the same type of innovative solution for a very fast changing industry that is going to be very exciting. The right solution that can handle the volumes, that is the smart, intelligent new way to go, that I really want to be part of.
Amazing. Happy to hear. John Dabkowski, thank you so much for your time. Super appreciate the enormous amount of value you've been able to kind of portray in this relatively short conversation. Thanks again, and have a lovely day.
Thank you, and thank you for the time. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for listening to this show, to this episode. You can go follow Fetcherr on social media, on LinkedIn. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel. And thank you again.